Yeah, thank you. That's very encouraging to hear that. As that, yeah, thank you. Appreciate gives me some little encouragement, confidence. Um, okay, so I'll just briefly sing Jai Radhamada because we're staying at a family's house right now, and I don't know if everyone's awake. Um, Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yasodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Shira Jaya Prabhupada 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 Srila Prabhupada Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Okay. Um, so today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 7, Verse 27. That's 7, 7, 27. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so the verse Sanskrit is Ita Dvaro Hi Samsaro Gunakarma Nibbandanaha Ajnanamula Parthapi Pumsa Swapna Ivarpyate Etadvaro hi samsaro gunakarma nibandhanaha jnanamulo parthopi pumsa swapna ivaprate etadvaro hi samsaro gunakarma nibandhanaha ajnanamulo parthopi pumsa swapna ivaprate. Anyone like to chant?
Etad dvarohi samsaro guna karma vibandanaha Agyana mura partopi pumsa swapna vivarpyate.
Anybody else?
Etadbado sangsaro guna karma nibandhanaha agyana mulo partopi pungsa swapna ivarpyate.
Thank you, God Krishna Prabhu. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Soul to the word for word. Okay. It taught this. Dwara, whose door. He, indeed. Samsara, material existence in which one suffers threefold miseries. Guna karma, nibandhana, captivation by the three modes of material nature. Ajnana mula, whose root is ignorance. Apartha, without factual meaning. Api, even. Pumsa, of the living entity. Swapna, a dream. Eva, like. Arpyate, is placed. Translation. Through polluted intelligence, one is subjected to the modes of nature, and thus one is conditioned by material existence. Like a dreaming state in which one falsely suffers material existence, or like a material state in which one falsely suffers material existence, which is due to ignorance, must be considered unwanted and temporary. Purport. The unwanted condition of temporary life is called ignorance, and one can very easily understand that the material body is temporary, for it is generated at a certain time and ends at a certain date, after undergoing the six kinds of change, namely birth, death, growth, maintenance, transformation, and dwindling. This condition of the eternal soul is due to his ignorance, and although it is temporary, it is unwanted. Because of ignorance, one is put into temporary bodies one after another. The spirit soul, however, does not need to enter such temporary bodies. He does so only due to his ignorance or his forgetfulness of Krishna. Therefore, in the human form of life, when one's intelligence is developed, one should change his consciousness by trying to understand Krishna. When one can be liberated, then one can be liberated. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4:9, where the Lord says, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvata tvaktva deham punarjanma naiti mam iti sarjuna. Quote, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Unless one understands Krishna and comes to Krishna consciousness, one must continue in material bondage. To end this conditional life, one must surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indeed, that is demanded by the Supreme Lord. Sarva Dharman Prityaja Mam Ekam Sharanam Braja. Bhagavad Gita 1866. As advised by Maharaj Rishabhadev, Nasadu Manye Yata Atmanoyam Asan Apikleshada Asadeha. One must be intelligent enough to understand that although one's body is temporary and will not endure for as long as one has a body, he must undergo the pangs of material existence. Therefore, if by good association, by the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master, one takes to Krishna consciousness, his conditional life of material existence is vanquished, and his original consciousness, known as Krishna consciousness, is revived. When one is Krishna conscious, he can realize that material existence, whether one is awake or dreaming, is nothing but a dream and has no factual value. This realization is possible by the grace of the Supreme Lord. This grace is also present in the form of the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is for everyone to engage in welfare activities to awaken the foolish living entity, especially in human society, so that he may come to the platform of Krishna consciousness and benefit by liberation and benefit by liberation from conditional life. In this connection, Srila Madhvacharya cites the following verses: Dukkha rupo pisamsaro buddhi purvam avapyate yathasvapne sidaschedam svayam krit va mano vasa tato dukkam avapyate. Excuse me. Tatta jagarito pitu janan api atmano dukam avasastu pravartate. One must realize that the material condition of life is full of distresses. One can realize this with purified intelligence. When one's intelligence is purified, he can understand that unwanted temporary material life is just like a dream. Just as one suffers pains when his head just as one suffers pain when his head is cut off in a dream. In ignorance, one suffers not only while dreaming, but also while awake. Without the mercy of the Supreme Person of Godhead, one continues in ignorance and is thus subjected to material distress in various ways. Okay. Okay, wonderful purple by Shri Papa Gita. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshur Anmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadakti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagajatan Saganat Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Shakam Vitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Kadara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so, yeah, thank you, devotees, for being present. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to give class and be with all of you. Sincere Vaishnavas. Okay. So let me just pull up my notes. I'm trying to do this all from my phone, so it's a little bit inconvenient. All right. Okay. All right. So yeah, a lot was discussed in this purport, obviously, and so I'll try to get through. I think I have about three points that I wanted to discuss. So this first point, what's being talked about here, this polluted intelligence. Through polluted intelligence, one is subjected to the modes of material nature. Pollution of consciousness and pure versus impure states. So we know that originally all spirit souls are, eternal servants of God. Mame Vamso Jiva Loke. Krishna saying that all living entities are my parts and parcels. So Krishna actually created us for his enjoyment. But just as, no one likes to just be alone and just, I guess some people do, but generally, like, you want to have like people with you, people to enjoy, the different experiences with. You go to the Holy Dham, and you want someone to like be able to reflect your experiences with and share realizations with. And just the other day in my office where I work, by the way, in case anyone doesn't know, working with children and youth services. I think I'll probably relay a few pastimes from my experience there throughout this class. But I was hearing one coworker lamenting that, I heard like, oh, my next social engagement, I don't have any like engagement where I'm gonna be like with friends or family or anything till like April. And she was lamenting in this. So this is a natural condition, wanting this association. So in the same way, Krishna expands like that into many, in order to have ultimately enjoyment, rasa, like that. So we are that. We are that expansion, and therefore our pure state is to act kind of in that capacity. So this is why, when we speak of, like Prabhupada gives the example that Dharma, like Dharma is the natural constitution of all living entities. Or Dharma is the constitution of something. So like the Dharma of sugar is sour. Nope, I'm just kidding. The Dharma of sugar is sweet. The Dharma of chili peppers are spicy, like that. So the Dharma of all living entities is to serve. That's just like, if you could give if someone could give a job description of life, it's like to serve, like I serve. And people of course don't realize that, and they try to say they're not, but they actually are. So then there's pure pure that can be done in a pure form or an impure form. And the pure form is, talk about the impure form first. The impure form takes on so many looks. so many different ways, serving, one's pets or one's boss or one's, family members like that. So it's misdirected because it's not connected to Krishna and is ultimately for a selfish purpose. Okay, if I so okay, one second. Okay, get my video back on. So the impure method of acting out our constitutional position is through this like service to so many things. But the pure form is to like be reestablished in that relationship with Krishna. So, and yeah, as Prabhupada says, like, because one might think like, oh, well, what's wrong? This sound like, you're talking about this impure form, but that doesn't sound so bad. Like, I serve my family, I serve my dog, I take care of my dog nicely. I even brush his teeth sometimes. Um, Whatever. I think what I hear have like, anyways, they have all sorts of like services for dogs now. I remember one like a dog park, Disneyland or something. I don't know. So one really caught my attention. Yeah, all sorts of. So yeah, that's why why are you getting on me for that? Like, why are you criticizing me for taking care of my dog, like brushing my dog's teeth? And the thing is that like Prabhupada says, in the material world, the servant serves the master, and the master has a relationship with the servant, but both are just wanting something from it. Both are just like self-motivated like that. So it's actually it's it's wanting to ultimately serve oneself, but like acting in these service relationships to really just get what you want. Um, so so that's the impure form, and then pure form is service to Krishna. So I was talking, Madhavan Lila and I were actually at the kirtan love kirtan. I don't know what they call it. Love kirtan, the love kirtan. It sounds kind of weird, but I think that's kirtan love. Some kirtan festival here in Central New Jersey where they're having they had Friday night, then all Saturday, and then today, also Sunday. Lots of kirtan. So we decided to seize the moment, came out here, and I think we did like 5 hours of kirtan yesterday. It was very nice, very uplifting, and just nice to be so many devotees. Like we were pulling up, and if you've ever been to CNJ, they have the parking lot, and it was completely packed. Like we had to like do some kind of makeshift parking at first, um, just like parking some like random corner that wasn't even a spot. But anyways, wonderful being so many devotees. So we were coming back last night and we were talking about how uh, this, like pure service and how um, our knowledge, our practice um, the pure form. Like there's that verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Raja Vidya Raja Guyam Avitam Idam Uttamam. pratak savagam dharmyam susukam kartam avyayam. That this is the king of knowledge and purest knowledge. What is it? Purest knowledge and the perfection of religion. Yeah. So it's the purest knowledge and perfection of religion. And that, and you know, because someone can say, well, I'm practicing my religion like sincerely, but you know that religion might be telling you to, you know, like whatever, kill an animal, um, in like a so-called pure way, but like ultimately, what are you doing? You kill an animal for your own sense gratification, um, or you're like, yeah, praying for your own like prosperity. So yeah, this is actually a pure form of religion because you know, as it says in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, that this is kicking this Bhagavatam is kicking out all impure forms of religion. Um, yeah. So so yeah, so the purity, um, pure consciousness is what we're trying to get to, and you know, sometimes we can like get down on ourselves because being we're not like feeling so like pure, like our offerings are not so pure. We're not feeling so um, like sincere in our service. So one can get down on themselves, but actually, um, that our whole process is to purify oneself to get to a pure state. So it's like, okay, I'm not pure. Okay, well that no that like doesn't matter really. Like you're as long as you're in the shower, you're moving towards that pure state. And um, you know, the beauty of Krishna consciousness is that it takes one from like a very gross form to a pure form. Um, so someone is giving the example like, yeah, like Krishna conscious movement, we're like taking bhaktas off the street and like sometimes literally like pressure washing, washing them with a hose, and they go from that state to like, you know, being these very cultured, refined, pure-hearted Vaishnavas. So, so our whole Krishna conscious process is that's what it is to purify the consciousness, and you know, starting with like learning basic things like, um, uh, you know, don't don't curse every 5 words. Like that's a good step in life, you know. That's a nice progress to make. Um, and then like it's funny when you like as a monk book distributor, you know, you'd be distributing a book to like a couple or something, and they would like say some curse word just because that's what they're used to saying, and then they'd be like, "Oh, sorry," um, like feeling shy about cursing in front of the monk. But yeah, so you go from that to like, you know, learning that, yeah, maybe a shower is the shower is not a bad idea. Uh, so you start taking showers, cleaning yourself up, and it's a whole, yeah. So you can see it from a very gross point of view. It gets very you start off learning how to be like a proper human being, and then our whole process is this like moving towards the pure consciousness. Um, and one one advances on that path by engaging in these processes. Hearing Bhagavatam every day, circumambulating Tulsi, seeing the deities, reading, chanting. It's all purifying the consciousness, and that's why it's said like wealth, the true wealth is service. The more service one has, the more wealthy one is, because one is engaging in these activities that are ultimately going to purify one. So that's something on this purification. Another point I want to talk about is, so throughout the purport, Prabhupada, he talks about like unwanted, the material existence being like a dream state, and how it's due to ignorance, and that that ignorance can ultimately, therefore in human life, so the ignorance is due to forgetfulness of Krishna, and ultimately when one being in the human form of life, like one has in developed intelligence, and therefore has the ability to change his consciousness by understanding Krishna, or to understand Krishna. So yes, so many living entities are out there, but are just like, don't have the capacity to realize Krishna. But in the human form of life, then you do. So yes. So and then Prabhupada goes to say, like, therefore, Mahaprabhu's mission is to engage everyone in welfare activities in order to spread these teachings to everyone. So it's so Prabhupada gives an example, like, so everyone is ultimately caught up in ignorance, and the only way to get out is by the mercy of the devotees. So this point struck me, that well, this story I think sums it up nicely. That Prabhupada, they were walking in some alleyway, and they heard like something ruffling around, and something was like some rustling in one of the dumpsters, banging around in one of the dumpsters. And then Prabhupada said, like, what is that? And then the devotees walked over, and it was a little rat in the dumpster, just like running around. And then Prabhupada said, like, yeah, he's doomed unless someone goes and takes him out. Like, that rat is actually doomed. So this is the condition of everyone in the material world, is like, everyone is just literally like a rat in the dumpster of this material world, going from this corner to that corner. Sometimes, whatever, someone might be in like a rat in a nicer neighborhood, might get some nicer trash in that dumpster. Sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes there's nothing in there to eat. But ultimately, that the rat is trapped in there. So that's how everyone is, and it's only actually the devotee, like by the mercy of the devotee, saying no, like you can come out, like come out. There is actually something else. So only by that can the person actually come out of this dumpster of material life. So it's quite yeah, it's quite amazing. Um, like that's why I said, one, I don't know where it's quoted, but one can go on speculating for thousands of lives, but ultimately that speculation can't get you to Krishna. Um, like you can't like conjure up in your mind that Krishna is a blue boy, and that he's a cowherd boy, and like you're not gonna be able to come up with that, even if you analyze for millions of years. No, it's only by someone coming up to you and saying, like, yeah, hey, um, check out this book. It's the ultimate reality. Only by that is one actually able to know. Um, yeah, so uh, this is the kind of like power of the Sankirtan movement, and let's say the responsibility of Vaishnavas to kind of go out and throw out those ropes to people um, who really have no other way besides that, devotee have, like taking that impetus. Um, and I think I had, a few more points. Okay. Okay, 1 second here. I have a message from our host. 1 second. Okay. Okay. I think I had one more point. Let me just go to my notes. Okay. So in the purport, Prabhupada also makes this point. Let's see if I can, yeah, it's really interesting. This concept of suffering in the material world. So I forget how Prabhupada says it. One must realize that the material condition of life is full of distresses. Um, and then this intro says, one can realize this with purified intelligence. So, yeah, that's the thing. People don't even realize that this material world is suffering. Like I was at one of my trainings at work, and it came up it came up that I was a vegetarian, and this guy, he was like, you know, he's like, no, that's nice for you, but like, I'm not, and you know, I, you know, do non-vegetarian stuff. Um, and then I was like, I didn't kind of control myself so well, but I just like blurted out, kind of was like, man, well, like there's so many studies, that eating meat is like bad for you, like like but bad for your health of your heart and stuff. And he's like, yeah, but I'm just gonna like eat, drink, and be merry and then die soon. Like he was admitting he was like so unhealthy that he knew he was gonna die soon. So um so yeah, he like this is that impure intelligence that he unfortunately has, to not even be not even realize and like want to improve this suffering situation that he's in. Um, so it's like people they like when you try to distribute them books, they're like, no, I'm good, no, I'm happy, I'm this, I'm that. Um, they actually like might think that they are, but if you like were like if a sage, from 1,000 years ago were to look at how they were living, they would be like, what? That's just crazy. That's absolutely crazy how they're living. Um, and like many of us, when we come to Krishna consciousness and we get this higher form of life, and then like we see that we visit our parents, and we're just like, oh my, they were like kind of like pulling our hair out, like, how can you do this? How can you do that? Like that's so moochy, all these things you're doing. Just, that just it's just not a good way to live. Um, but but uh, it's interesting. Yeah, it's just through impure conscious, they actually don't realize these things. Uh, so as devotees, also we have to not fall into that trap, and also like remind ourselves that yeah, this world is suffering. Um, like it's constantly, yeah. This winter, if one doesn't realize how this world is suffering after experiencing winter like this, then I don't know. I don't know what you're thinking. Maybe you like the cold, or I don't know. But it was a lot of suffering. Um, and yeah, our whole, like, even if things are going nicely, you never know when things are just gonna take a turn for the worse. Like that's the nature of this world. Um, what to speak of when one is old, when one has to, like, that's gonna be suffering for sure. So one like Prabhupada saying, yeah, one must realize that the material condition of life is full of distresses. So like my guru talks about, yeah, even to wake up in the morning and like get ready, like we just take that as a normal, like, yeah, this is what I do. I get up, I get out of my covers, I shiver a bit, I go, you know, brush my teeth and like shave and all these things that are actually very inconvenient, but we just take them as normal. Like, oh, they're just part of day-to-day life. Go get in the freeway, like sit in the traffic, and um, we yeah we take these things as normal, but it's actually just constant suffering and constant doing things to remedy or prevent that suffering. But yeah, then it's Prabhupada saying that when one is Krishna conscious, he can realize that the material existence, whether one is awake or dreaming, is nothing but a dream. It has no factual value. This realization is possible by the grace of the Supreme Lord. This grace is also present in the form of the instructions of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, I thought it said something about the Guru, but yeah. So ultimately, that's the thing, is that the Guru is by the mercy of the Guru, one is able to realize these things and ultimately get out of this material world. So, very important to take that as the foremost relationship in one's life. And I was thinking, for myself, I don't think I have, very many strengths, good qualities, but like I have like sometimes, I have even sometimes blindly or naively just like followed the spiritual master, to whatever extent I could. And it's just like, wow, yeah, life has worked out like well. And I'm just thinking, wow, what would my life have been if I didn't take on a spiritual master and I didn't listen to his instructions? Like, where would I be? I don't know. And of course, yeah, one goes through aches and pains in that way from a material point of view. What the following the order of the spiritual master might inconvenience one materially, and like I remember when he told me to go to Gita Nagari, I was shocked. I was literally like, you want me to go to a farm? Are you? And I have to admit, I did try to like pull out a few arguments, um, but ultimately I ended up, waking up on a farm one day and being shocked, like, wow, I'm really on a farm right now. Yeah, like I'm in a barn, like scraping cow dung. Like, wow, this is interesting. The turn, kind of that my life has taken. But ultimately, I can see all that following and that having that faith, has been good for my spiritual life. Has been beneficial and taken me done way better for me spiritually than would I had if I just would have been trying to make up my own path like that. Okay, so yeah, and there I just made a few points talking about pure consciousness versus impure consciousness. The how this material world is like, conditioned souls are just in ignorance and it's trapped, and literally the only way you can get out is the devotee reaching out and saying, hey, there's something else. Then I talked about the suffering of the material world and how Prabhupada says one must realize that the material condition of life is full of distresses. So yeah, life is full of distresses, and then ultimately surrendering unto the spiritual master, and how that's really the only safety in this world. Okay, so I'll stop there. Eager to hear something, questions, comments, reflections. So if anyone has anything, they can do so now. Oh, wow.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for your class. I have a question. This verse compares material existence to a dream. So, in our practical life, what are some ways that we can remember that this material life is like a dream? It's temporary. We don't want to invest ourselves wholly and solely in something which is temporary, but at the same time, we have real responsibilities, and we shouldn't be neglectful of them. So I guess I'm looking for suggestions of how to balance detachment and responsibility.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a good question. You know, it like sometimes we get experiences in life about how like our situation is temporary. Like, you know, like say one knows they're gonna move. Then, things in life kind of take a different perspective. You're like, yeah, well, maybe I shouldn't be so like invested in this or that. um, like if you knew you were gonna move houses, then you know you're not gonna be like it kind of gives a different consciousness. You start looking at things like, okay, yeah, this is just actually a temporary situation. Like I'm gonna leave this situation. So yeah, it's interesting when one has that experience because one can relate that to relate that that's actually how we should be in this material world. That this is just a temporary situation, um, and we're just literally passing through. So one shouldn't get too kind of caught up and attached. But yeah, then one does also have one's duties to perform, and the beauty of Krishna consciousness is that it like even though we're in this world, we're given a prescription of like how to be in this world and not get contaminated and still have that kind of transition mindset. Um, so like the Varna system and Varna and ashram, but there's duties within that, and our duties are prescribed. So it's like, yeah, one does one does one's duties that are there. But yeah, it's interesting because then one has to also, while doing those duties, realize that it's just temporary. So yeah, how to do that? That might be tricky because that kind of knowledge that it's temporary could lead one to being irresponsible per se. So I guess my only thought how to remedy that is to do one's duties and kind of let those duties naturally play out their potency. Like this is Krishna's system. So ultimately, if I plug in the Krishna system, um, you know, having some faith that that's gonna lend towards that natural detachment. Yes, that's why I like these things. Culture is so important, and like the Varna and ashram system. It's all lending to this kind of doing one's duties, but at the same time moving through this world and not getting stuck. That's the best I have for that. If you were, yeah. I saw another looks like that her hand up. So maybe I'll
Thank
go to
you.
her.
Thank you, Prabhu. I guess I would add that I'm just thinking about one example that Srila Prabhupada gave that on the one hand, we want to detach ourselves from the material nature, and we really, as spirit soul, we have nothing to do with any of what's happening within the scope of material nature. But our philosophy is also that while it's temporary, it's also real. It's produced by Krishna, but so it's real, but it's temporary. But it can have practical utility that just like Srila Prabhupada gives the example of a thorn. So you get a thorn somewhere in your skin, you can use another thorn to remove that thorn. So similarly, the material nature, it's temporary, and ultimately we have nothing to do with it, and we want to be detached from it. But we can use the material nature itself as a means to extract ourselves from the material nature, and so that process it can be confusing to understand unless one takes shelter of a bona fide spiritual master who will prescribe specifically what you should do. So then, by following his directives, still working within the scope of material nature, but um, for practical purposes, it becomes transformed. If we're acting on the instructions of the spiritual master, who is the representative of Krishna, then our actions become spiritualized, they become transcendentalized, and then they have real value. And then the material nature, which is otherwise temporary and useless, becomes a means for extracting us from the bondage of material nature. So we actually don't really even have to strike a balance between detachment and responsibility. We can simply fully embrace the responsibilities assigned to us by our spiritual master. And by that process, we will automatically be extricated. We will automatically develop detachment. That's my understanding. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's how it works. Anyway, I've taken enough time. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Dina Palika, did you still want to say something?
Right, well, yeah, thanks for your class. I liked your points about, well, when you're speaking about purification, I read something last night that has very much perplexed me, and I wanted to ask, hopefully in today's class. So, whenever we hear about like going through, doing the process of bhakti, sadhana bhakti, then one develops the 20, or as a byproduct, develops the 26 qualities of a devotee. And then also there's more Krishna lists in the Bhagavad Gita, as well as qualities that one develops, godly qualities. But I was reading last night the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj, and it was the part where he's killing the Yakshas that killed his brother Uttama and his, what is that, stepmother. And so it says in the purport that Dhruva Maharaj is becoming angry, overwhelmed with grief, and envious of the enemies was not incompatible with his position as a great devotee. It is a misunderstanding that a devotee should not be angry, envious, or overwhelmed by lamentation. Dhruva Maharaj was the king, and when his brother was unceremoniously killed, it was his duty to take revenge against the Yakshas from the Himalayas. So I was just wondering if you can explain this, that his basically becoming angry, overwhelmed with grief, and envious of the enemies was not incompatible with his position as a great devotee. It is a misunderstanding that a devotee should not be angry, envious, or overwhelmed by lamentation. Because to me, that seems like contradictory to, the developing of, right, we're supposed to become non-envious and not overwhelmed by lamentation, and not so angry. So can you explain that?
Yeah, I'm a little perplexed also by that. I mean, I could see how if those emotions were just in relation to like Krishna, or like Krishna's devotees, like one can get mad if one offends a devotee of Krishna. We hear about the passing of the spiritual master. Like, yeah, one should obviously lament that. So yeah, in that regard, like the devotee is, we're not like emotionless. We're just we have purified emotions. So yeah, it's interesting. Like one thing I was thinking about is the devotee. It's not that we don't have emotions, it's that our consciousness is elevated to such an extent where we have emotions for what really matters. Like someone with uncontrolled emotions, they just like get disturbed about any little thing, right? But like with a little advancement, it's like, okay, that's not going to disturb me. Like it'll take more to disturb me. So like what we're doing as devotees, we're elevating our consciousness to a point where we have emotions for the topmost thing, our relationship with Krishna. And then these, like, because of our purified consciousness, we're not affected by like, oh, like the Bhagavad Gita says, the one who is wise doesn't lament for the living nor the dead. So these kind of like worldly emotions don't affect us. So that, I know that's not like directly answering your question, but we can imagine that Dhruva Maharaj has these purified emotions. So therefore, these emotions that he's exhibiting must be for a greater cause. Like, yeah, he's not just like getting mad because his relatives were killed. Either he's doing that because they're great devotees, or because there's like maybe some greater reason to exhibit those emotions in the service of the Lord. That's the only thing I can think of.
Thanks. That makes a lot of sense to me. It's like devotees have emotions for elevated, or yeah, devotees have emotions for elevated things, or I guess depending on what level of devotee you are, but eventually that the bar just gets higher. You still have all the same emotions, but the bar gets higher on what you're experiencing those emotions for. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you.
Yeah, because we hear about like the equanimity of a devotee, like they're not affected by things so easily. Yeah. Okay, Tarkabu, maybe you had a follow up on this topic.
I do have some thoughts about it. If I understand the question correctly, Dina Palika Peru's question, it appears as though Dhruva Maharaj was conducting himself in a manner that was disproportionate to the circumstances, and he appeared to be materially affected. And so this seems to be inappropriate for a devotee, particularly an advanced devotee. But if I recall correctly, the story as it is, initially Dhruva was in fact affected by illusion, and but the illusion was immediately dispelled when he remembered Krishna, and how was it? He took up his bow, and immediately upon knocking an arrow, the illusion was immediately dispelled. And then he was approached by Swayambhuva Manu, who basically told him to chill out. That he was getting carried away, but it was his behavior was a manifestation of his nature as a Kshatriya. He was a powerful Kshatriya, and he responded in the manner in which a Kshatriya is expected to conduct himself. So, from one perspective, it could be said that he was acting within the parameters of his Varna, but I think what Srila Prabhupada was getting at in his purport when he explains that this is not necessarily incompatible or inappropriate for a Vaishnava is that the people sometimes have misconceptions about uh, um, spiritual consciousness or godly consciousness. The idea that one is going to be simply equiposed and peaceful under all circumstances, and this is not actually the consciousness of an advanced devotee. A devotee engages everything in Krishna's service, including all of his emotions. All of his emotional responses are all, none of this is suppressed or annihilated. It all has its perfect application within Krishna consciousness. So if you study in detail Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, particularly the latter chapters that talk about rasa, the mixing of rasas and so on, and rasa bas and so on. There's lots of discussion of how a devotee engages everything in Krishna's service. So even one's anger, we have the propensity to become angry, and to become angry for material reasons is described as the pathway to hell. But that same anger um, um, dovetail with Krishna consciousness becomes completely transcendental. Rather than being the pathway to hell, it can liberate you. Liberation is not the objective, but it's a side effect of devotional service. So, anger, and intense animosity towards one's enemy, it's appropriate, for example, for a devotee to manifest anger towards anyone who is attempting to harm another devotee or harm the deities. For example, a devotee should, or even it's described, someone who is blasphemous of a devotee. What to speak of actually doing physical harm? Just to speak ill of another devotee, it's appropriate to become angry towards such an individual. There are injunctions that describe, cutting out the tongue of someone who blasphemes. Um, um, but anger is appropriate under certain circumstances, and it's actually required for certain circumstances. So an example of this is Arjuna, for example. In order to fight effectively, you can't wage battle. You can't fight effectively if you're in a calm, equiposed frame of mind. You have to manifest some anger towards your opponent. That will release the kind of energy that you need to be effective as a fighter. And so that's the appropriate thing, that you engage anger with all of what it entails, the tremendous release of adrenaline and so on, is sometimes required in devotional service. And so for devotional service, it is appropriate and not in any way incompatible. Ultimately, an advanced devotee who has advanced beyond bhava to Krishna prema and is absorbed in various rasas, they will manifest all different kinds of symptoms. All of the different emotions will manifest very fully, including anger at times. All of these have their proper application in Krishna consciousness. Nothing is repressed or these are all, when they're manifested within the scope of material consciousness, it's a perverted reflection of the proper application that exists in Krishna consciousness. That, I think, is the essential point that Srila Prabhupada is making. Dhruva in particular did, in fact, at least initially, he was not necessarily in full Krishna consciousness, but temporarily overcome. And then, but then that was rectified. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I hope that helps. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Peru. Yeah, it's so nice, like thinking just how we're not just like impersonal my bodies, like we exhibit these purified emotions, and that's yeah, it's nice. It's much more like lively type of life. Okay, well, Jagannath Pandit Prabhu said, our innumerable lifetimes are like in-depth, detailed dreams in which we identified as real as we identified with the body. In this life, our past experiences are also part of the bigger dream of this particular life. Jai, thank you, Prabhu. Okay, well, maybe we'll end here. Thank you all very much. So nice to be in the association of all the devotees, and hope you have a good day. Hare Krishna, all glories to Shri Papa Ki Jai, Shri Radha Damodar Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo.